Hey, what's up everybody? It's your friendly neighborhood Tony back again with an extra special video today. What I wanted to do is go over my entire movie collection. I have a pretty ridiculous collection. It's not as big as some of the others that I've seen on YouTube. I've seen collections of thousands and thousands of movies, but I have several hundred and I want to go over it, but I don't want to do it all at once. What I thought I'd do is that I would go alphabetically, starting first with the numbers, and give you separate videos covering each letter or each group as far as numbers are concerned, and give you separate videos just going over all the movies in my collection. So today we're gonna do the numericals. Then once I finish rewatching all of my movies that start with the letter A, I will do a video for the A's and so on and so forth until we get all the way through my collection. And then at that point, I don't know, maybe I'll then do a full movie collection or something like that. So today, a smaller amount of Blu-rays. I think there's like 20 something movies that I have that start with numbers. So we'll go over each and every one of those. I'll show you the disc, talk a little bit about the movie, a little bit about what comes in the package with the Blu-ray or the DVD even that I have. I have a couple DVDs as well. So let's go ahead and get started without further ado. If this is something that you like and it interests you, give the video a like so that way I know to continue to do these. And if you want to see the rest of my collection coming up, make sure you subscribe to the channel. All right, coming up first in alphabetical order with the numericals, we have a 4K disc, and that is 10 Cloverfield Lane. So this is the sequel to the original Cloverfield movie, and it is very different from the original Cloverfield. These are all the special features and everything. Comes in 4K. It basically is like a confined thriller. So you have your main character here played by Mary Elizabeth Winstead, and she is basically trapped in this underground bunker with John Goodman, of course. John Goodman, yes. And John Goodman is kind of keeping her safe in this bunker, or is he? And that's part of the thriller as far as it's concerned. So you're kind of figuring out, like, is he crazy? Is he keeping her here because he just wants to have her here? Or is he actually trying to keep her safe from whatever's happening outside of the bunker? So a pretty cool movie. Looks pretty good on 4K. Definitely recommend checking this one out if you haven't already. I really enjoyed it. So I've got that one. Next up is 10 Things I Hate About You. There we go. If you can see that. So I've got the 10th anniversary edition Blu-ray here. There's all the special features if you want to check that out. And this is pretty cool. Being the 10th anniversary edition, it's got a bunch of stuff about Heath Ledger. You know, unfortunately, he had passed, I think, shortly before this anniversary edition came out. So they had a bunch of special features talking about him. It's a pretty fun movie. It's obviously a 90s teenage rom-com, but it's based on Shakespearean work. It's based on Taming of the Shrew. And it's just a fun, memorable movie. If you were a kid growing up in the 90s, it's probably something that you saw a lot on TV. For me, I grew up with an older sister, and so she loved this kind of thing. And so I picked it up myself on Blu-ray. All right, next up is a Criterion collection of 12 Angry Men, which is from 1957, I think. There's all the special features. There's a ton of special features on these Criterion Collection Blu-rays. 12 Angry Men is basically about a group of jurors who are sitting on this trial for a murder, and they're ultimately trying to decide whether or not they want to convict this young man on the murder of his father. It's a really good movie. It's got Jane Fonda's father. It's a Sidney Lumet movie. It takes place entirely in the juror room, so it's similar to 10 Cloverfield Lane. It's a very confined film, more so though, because you literally don't leave this room. At the very beginning of the movie, you're in the courtroom, right? And then they move the jurors into this juror room, and you do not leave that room until the movie is over. And it's really, really good. Henry Fonda is really great in this. Also, oh gosh, I'm so bad with names, especially of older actors that I don't remember. There is kind of like a main antagonist in this movie, and you can actually see him right here, that fella. He is really, really good in it as well. So definitely recommend this movie. It's an absolute classic, and Criterion puts out incredible packages as far as special features and things like that. So definitely worth checking this one out. All right, next up is 12 Years a Slave with Chiwetel Ejiofor, who I absolutely love. They're the special features. Not a lot of special features on this one, just a couple things. But this movie is a beautiful movie. It's an important movie, and it is a hard movie to watch. I'll tell you that right now. This movie does a thing where it sits on certain shots for extended periods of time, and very uncomfortable shots. And it's purposeful because it wants you to feel the discomfort of the moment. And it's just really hard to watch. It's obviously about slavery, and it's about Chiwetel Ejiofor's character, who is a free man who ends up getting captured and sold off into slavery. And it's about him trying to figure out how to deal with this new circumstances of his life. And it's based off a book that I think is a true story, as far as I know, if I recall correctly. But a very, very good movie. I don't know if this is one that's a purchase though. It's definitely something that I think everybody should see, but I will probably never go back and watch it again. I don't think. 12 Years a Slave, very, very good movie. A very hard watch though. Next up, I gotta move a little quicker on these. We have 13 Going on 30, complete vibe switch on this one. So 13 Going on 30, you got Jennifer Garner, you've got Mark Ruffalo. There's the special features. There are actually quite a few special features on this one, deleted scenes, different commentaries, things like that. This is a fun, just rom-com movie. It's actually one of my girlfriend's movies. When we moved in together, we combined our collections and she had this on DVD. And I said, no. No person in my home is gonna have a DVD of a movie that is available on Blu-ray. I will not allow that. So we upgraded it to Blu-ray. And yeah, it's just a fun, kind of silly movie. And you know what? If you've seen recently The Adam Project on Netflix with Ryan Reynolds, it also has Jennifer Garner and Mark Ruffalo in that, playing a married couple and parents of Ryan Reynolds. So this is kind of a prequel to The Adam Project in its own weird way. 13 Going on 30, that's a fun one. Next up is a movie called 1408. 1408 is based on a Stephen King short story. It's got John Cusack, Samuel L. Jackson. There's the special features on that one. You get a few things on here. This is a pretty cool movie. It is a horror movie, but it's really more of a psychological horror film. John Cusack is a paranormal author. He writes about the 10 most haunted graveyards in the United States, things like that. And he hears about this hotel room, 1408 at the Dolphin Hotel in New York. And it's supposedly incredibly haunted and dangerous, and he wants to go there and stay there overnight. And so it's about him being in this room. Samuel L. Jackson works at the hotel as I don't know if he's a concierge or manager or what have you. And he's basically telling John Cusack, do not stay in that room. It is an evil room. But John Cusack decides to do it anyway. So it's about his experience there. It also goes a bit into his family life. I think he'd gotten divorced. He had a child that I believe passed away, if I remember correctly. But it's a very good movie and has a very trippy ending. And in fact, the ending that you get on the Blu-ray is different than the ending that you would have gotten in theaters. I think if I remember correctly, the Blu-ray does have that other alternate ending as well. So you get both of them if I remember. But it's really cool, a really interesting and kind of edge of your seat, uncomfortable psychological horror film. So definitely check it out if you're interested in that kind of thing. That's a pretty solid one. All right, next up. Oh gosh, this is going to be so much longer than I thought it would be. We've got 1917. This is an absolute must buy on 4K. This movie is stunning and a really cool World War I movie. World War I? Yeah, it's World War. Yeah, of course. Oh my God, I'm so dumb. 1917. Yes, it's definitely World War I. Jesus Christ. But it's a really cool movie. There's all the special features and stuff, if you can see that. It looks gorgeous. It does a really cool thing where it makes it appear that most of the film is done in one continuous shot. They hide the cuts really, really well. And they do some very, very long shots in the film, but it seems very seamless. So it's like a very cool experiment in cinematography. And yeah, it's just a really gorgeous movie. It's got, this whole wartime thing going on. So there's a lot of like gunfire and things like that. But it also has a lot to do with, I guess, finding peace in your in the most dire of circumstances. And there's a really beautiful scene towards the end where there's a gentleman singing a song as the character walks through this field. And it's just a really gorgeously shot, a absolutely great film. Definitely recommend checking out 1917. And if you do, definitely get it on 4K. Absolutely worth the purchase on 4K. All right, next up is a movie called 1984. 1984 is another classic. I have the Criterion Collection Blu-ray here. There's the special features. This movie is, I feel like, a very important movie, and it's a movie that influences a lot of modern films. You get a ton of special features on this, of course. It influences a lot of modern films, definitely. It's not a movie that I would necessarily go back and watch time and time again, but I think it's absolutely something that everyone must watch at least once in their life. I think you watch this a lot of times in school. So 1984, I definitely recommend you at least checking it out. If it's a movie that connects with you and you want to pick it up, definitely go for the Criterion Collection Blu-ray, because that is going to be the best way to get everything that you could possibly want out of this movie. 1984, very good. Happy I have that one in my collection. Now, next up is one of my favorite movies of all time, bar none, and that is 2001: A Space Odyssey. So I have the special edition here that comes with the 4K Blu-ray and also with a bunch of like postcards, images from the movie. So a lot of extra special features and things like that come in this package. There's some special features there, commentary tracks, things like that, making of documentaries. Really cool to pick this one up. This is one of the godfathers of modern sci-fi, and it is just a great movie. It really is more than just a sci-fi flick. It is kind of the telling of human civilization and evolution throughout time. And I know that sounds kind of maybe pretentious and like, oh, there's no way that's all of that, but it really, really is. It is an absolutely tremendous movie, and this is a must watch. Even if you're not into sci-fi, if you're just into film, I mean, they have to teach this in school. It's such a good film. It's Stanley Kubrick, of course. So 2001: A Space Odyssey. Next up, we got a little double feature here, a little double pack. This is 21 and 22 Jump Street, which is hilarious to go from 2001: A Space Odyssey to 21 and 22 Jump Street. But we've got both of those on Blu-ray. They are available on 4K, but I don't think there's really any reason to get them on 4K. The 4K version isn't that much of an upgrade from the regular Blu-ray. Here's all the special features on those. Of course, this is Jonah Hill and Channing Tatum, and they are undercover cops going in the first movie, going into a high school to kind of break up a drug ring. And then in the second movie, they're in college. And then there's always been a joke about them doing sequels like 23 Jump Street, where they're in medical school or what have you. But there's been nothing, and it's been quite some time since the last movie came out. But these are just fun action comedy movies, and I really enjoy both of them pretty equally, which is, pretty rare to say when you consider a comedy sequel. They're generally not as good as the originals, but both of these are pretty fun. I definitely recommend picking them up if you're into that kind of like silly, maybe even like sophomoric comedy. Next up is Spike Lee's The 25th Hour, or I think it's just 25th Hour. No, this is on DVD, of course, because it's not available on Blu-ray. It is in like a pack with another movie. I forget which one. It comes bundled in with another movie, but I don't like those kind of things. But this is just The 25th Hour on DVD. A Spike Lee joint. You get a number of special features on there. This one is Edward Norton playing a drug dealer who gets arrested, and it is the last day before he goes away to prison. And he's kind of figuring out his relationships and speaking with his father and his friends and his girlfriend, and then also maybe trying to figure out who ratted him out. So there's a lot of intrigue there, and it's also just a cool insight into someone that knows that they're going away and what they decide to do with the little bit of freedom that they have left before they go away to prison. For I want to say he was going away for like 8 years or something like that. Very good movie. 25th Hour. I wish we had this on Blu-ray. It's kind of ridiculous that we don't, but there is a DVD available that you can probably pick up for $5. All right, next up is another double feature here, kind of. I have them both separately on Blu-ray, but it is a couple of my favorite zombie movies, 28 Days Later and 28 Weeks Later. 28 Days Later is definitely the much better movie, but they're both enjoyable. Here's the special features on both of them. They are, I believe, both written by Danny Boyle. I know the first one is directed by Danny Boyle. The second one is directed by another guy who I don't remember his name, but they are basically movies that there's like an outbreak. I think it's called, is it called the Rage Virus? And there's a zombie outbreak. In the first movie, you have Cillian Murphy or Killian Murphy. I forget how to pronounce his first name, but he is in a coma and he wakes up, kind of like Walking Dead, actually. I think that's what happened in the first season of Walking Dead, but this came first, I think. And he wakes up, and then the UK has been taken over by these zombies, and everybody's dead and all that, and he's trying to figure out what is going on. And then 28 weeks later is the zombie infestation has died down. It's now been 28 weeks after that, and the government is trying to repopulate the UK. And of course, things go wrong because it's a zombie movie. So both are really fun. The second one, you actually have Jeremy Renner, which is interesting. So he has a decent role in the second movie, but it was kind of before he became Hawkeye and was really, really popular. So a couple really good movies. Definitely a fan of 28 Days Later. 28 Weeks Later is kind of like the not as good little brother. Got both of those there. A couple of my favorite zombie movies. We're getting there. We're almost done. Next up, we have 3:10 to Yuma on 4K Blu-ray. This has Christian Bale, Russell Crowe. It's a story about Christian Bale's character, who is a Civil War veteran who has been injured. I think he lost part of his leg, and he has become kind of a farmer or rancher. And Russell Crowe is this, super bad guy, Billy the Kid style character, and Christian Bale is escorting him. He's been hired to escort him to this train to take him away to prison. It's a pretty good movie about what it means to be a good guy, what it means to be a bad guy, and kind of the gray area in between. Russell Crowe's character is a bad guy in that he's committed a lot of crimes, but he's also good in some ways. So it's a very interesting exploration into their psyche. This is actually done by James Mangold, who has done the more recent Wolverine movies, including Logan. So this was done a bit before that, I think. I forget what year this was. I think it was like 2007 or something like that, but a very good Western. I'm not a big fan of Westerns, but this is one that I definitely enjoyed. As far as the 4K, it's okay. I don't think you necessarily need to upgrade. I just happen to have purchased the 4K, but I think you're okay with the Blu-ray if you have that. All right, next up, kind of a cheesy horror movie. It's 30 Days of Night with Josh Hartnett and Melissa George. And this is based on a comic book and is actually a really cool, gory horror movie with vampires. But I wouldn't say it's necessarily a good film per se, but it's just fun, violent, ridiculous, over-the-top vampire action where in a small town in Alaska, it's dark for 30 days out of the year, and these vampires appear and just start wreaking havoc. So this is a fun movie. If you're into that kind of thing, you could probably pick it up on Blu-ray for just a few bucks. Recommend that if you're into kind of bloody, vampire, cheesy, comic booky movies. All right, next up, we are on to another double feature here. This is 300 and 300 Rise of an Empire. 300 is a fun movie that I enjoyed when I was a young man and it first came out. 300 Rise of an Empire is all right, I guess. It's, not as good as the first one, and the first one isn't really something that I think is super high quality either, but they're, good action movies. Of course, you've got Gerard Butler in the first one. Eva Green is in the second one. So a couple names you recognize. You also have, what's her name that played the Lannister sister? She is in both movies, actually. She plays the wife of the King of Sparta, of Gerard Butler's character. I forget her name. Anyway, she's in both of the movies. So first one, if you're nostalgic for it, like me, if you were a teenager or a young man in 2003, when this came out, I think it was 2003, then this probably is something that has a place in your heart. So have both of those there. Next up, start moving a little quicker here. 40-Year-Old Virgin. This is a cheesy comedy, kind of raunchy a little bit. Not too over the top though, but it's a fun movie. You got a ton of special features on this one. Yeah, this one's really fun. I enjoyed this movie. I think I didn't see this until much later in life, probably just a couple years ago I saw it for the first time. And yeah, it's fun. Steve Carell, very funny guy. Judd Apatow movie. And I think Judd Apatow, if I'm being honest, I don't want to say he's fallen off, but he's not put out movies that I have enjoyed as much as he did in the early 2000s. So I think this is definitely one of his better works as far as his comedies are concerned. Then we have a movie here called 42, which is the Jackie Robinson story, which has Chadwick Boseman and Harrison Ford in it. This is, I think, one of the movies that kind of set up Chadwick Boseman to be a leading man. It's one of like his first big breaks. And of course, Harrison Ford in this movie, I feel like does some of his best acting that he's ever done. He plays a manager, I think, of the Dodgers, the team that Jackie Robinson plays on. And of course, this is based on the real story of everything that happened with Jackie Robinson being the first black man to play in what at the time was just white baseball. Only white people were allowed to play. So it was a very big time in history. I did really enjoy this movie. I really enjoyed Harrison Ford's acting. I think that he is performing in a way that he often doesn't. He, tends to get these roles that are movies that he's not necessarily excited to be in, and you can tell. But in this movie, you can tell he was really into playing this character. Chadwick Boseman is also very good. My only criticism was less with him and more with Jackie Robinson himself. Jackie Robinson was kind of a stoic character throughout a lot of this time, and as such, he just doesn't feel as interesting because his whole thing is that he is supposed to not react to everything that's happening around him, and he doesn't. But when your protagonist is not reacting, then it doesn't really serve for a very interesting film. Overall, the movie was good though, but that was just kind of one of my nitpicks with it. So Jackie Robinson's story, something that Chadwick Boseman was fantastic in, and a pretty solid film there. All right, we've got three more. Next up is 50-50, which is Joseph Gordon-Levitt and Seth Rogen. You also have Anna Kendrick in there. And Angelica Houston, who was Morticia Addams. But you've got this movie about Joseph Gordon-Levitt has come down with a cancer, and apparently there's a 50-50 chance of him surviving, and it's about him dealing with that as a young man. Here, I'll flip this around. Actually, I think I have the Canadian version, which is silly, so you're going to see some French in here, which is ridiculous, but it's the same as the American version. I just accidentally got the wrong one on Amazon. But a very good movie, surprisingly funny, which I know you're thinking, this dude has cancer, has a 50-50 chance of living. What's funny about that? But that's kind of the point of the movie. The point of the movie is to make you reflect on, like, even when you're in these really dire circumstances in life, there is kind of a balance to everything that you inevitably find. And he finds this balance and really kind of finds himself in the movie and figures out what's important to him as he's going through this really difficult circumstance. So a very good movie. I really enjoyed this one. Another Joseph Gordon-Levitt movie, which just so happens to be the very next movie in alphabetical order, is 500 Days of Summer, which is a rom-com, I guess. It's definitely a rom. I don't know if I would call it a com. It's more of a rom-sad, I think, but there's the special features there. It's got Joseph Gordon-Levitt and Zooey Deschanel, and this movie is a romance story kind of told from the perspective of a guy, but not just a guy who honestly kind of reminds me a bit of myself when I was young, in that he's idealistic and kind of sets himself up for failure in a lot of ways, because you create these ideas of what a significant other is, or basically these unrealistic expectations, and he definitely has that in this movie. And then of course Zooey Deschanel, she's very good. She plays kind of what we now know as the manic pixie dream girl, which is kind of a stereotype, which is unfortunate, but in this movie she's very good. So is Joseph Gordon-Levitt. They're both very good in this movie, and it's just cool to get that different perspective than you might be used to in a lot of romance films. So 500 Days of Summer, a very good movie, something that I think when I watched as a young man, I appreciate it in a different way that now, as I watch it as somebody who's more mature, allegedly more mature, but who's definitely older. And now I look back on it and watch this movie and I kind of get something completely different out of it. So this is definitely one that if you haven't seen in a long time, might be worth a rewatch. And last up on the list is, the cinematic masterpiece, truly, that is 8 Mile. All right, now, I do have 8 Mile on Blu-ray. It's an okay movie. It's Eminem, of course, Brittany Murphy, Mekhi Phifer, and it's kind of the story of Eminem coming up on the underground rap battle scene, and it's pretty good. Oh, it also has Anthony Mackie in there in a smaller role, but it's kind of like his big break, so it's cool to see him in there. But it's a fun movie. If you enjoy Eminem, it's worth it. It's worth checking out. If you don't, I would skip it, but I have it. It's in my collection, and that is the last movie that I have in the numerical section. So what I'm going to do now is continue to watch through all of the movies that I have that start with the letter A, and then eventually I'm going to do a crazy long video going over all of those because I think there's way more movies that start with the letter A than start with numbers. So if you guys enjoyed this, let me know in the comments below. If not, let me know that too. That way I can stop doing this. I definitely want to do more videos like this. So let me know what you guys think in the comments below. Give the video a like if you enjoyed it. And if you want to see more, make sure you subscribe for more on the channel. All right, that's going to be it for me. I'm going to go drink a bunch of water because my voice is gone. And I'll catch you guys in the next one. Be good.